We got Chance. We got T-Foles, I think is what those things are called. We got an Army. We got a Timbers Army. But across this great big country of ours, as a sports country, we continue to say time and time and time again, we don't care about soccer. We don't care about it. And if you have learned anything from the restructuring of college athletics, if you've learned anything from the conference realignment, you should be learning that when people are passionate about something, they are invested in that thing. They financially invest, they emotionally invest, and usually success will follow. I'm not saying this in a mean-spirited way, but if you look at the financial investment that Texas, Oklahoma, Washington, Oregon, those college football programs, if you look at the financial investment that they put in, not of the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, of the last 15, 20 years. For Washington and for Texas and for Oklahoma, it's been for decades. For Oregon, it's been a little bit less, but once Phil Knight got involved, and there's no surprise that when you look at what the SEC wanted in terms of building brands, Oregon or Texas and Oklahoma were the brands that they want. I don't know for certain, but I can almost assuredly say that Texas and Oklahoma invested more money in their programs than TCU and Oklahoma State. And TCU and Oklahoma State are still in the Big 12. And I know for a fact that they invested more money than Oregon State did or Washington State did. And that is the biggest reason why Oregon State and Washington State, even though I don't agree with it and it's wrong, they got left out of conference realignment. Justin, weren't you talking about soccer? Yeah. There is no emotional and financial investment in national soccer in the United States from the men's side. It doesn't exist. If there was, and I say this all the time, and soccer fans get real mad at me, football fans get really mad at me, and that's fine. You can be mad at me. Probably a tough day for me to be picking a fight with the soccer fans because it was a bad day yesterday for the men's national team. But if we put a tenth of the investment into men's national soccer, a tenth of the investment that we as sports fans put into college football, we'd be one of the best teams in the world. We just would. If athletes growing up cared more about winning the World Cup than running out of the tunnel at Notre Dame or splitting the T at Tennessee or running onto the field through the smoke at Miami, if they did, nobody would ever stop us at soccer. We wouldn't. The best athletes in the world are here. And if we ever decided that, as a sports culture nationwide, and again, Portland, I get it. We love soccer here. We're invested here. People buy season tickets. People buy gear. People give their time, which is the biggest investment. Nationwide, we don't do that. And I know people don't like the argument that it's not just about getting the best athletes. Yeah, it is. It simply is. I always tell the story of Joel Embiid. Justin, what does Joel Embiid have to do with soccer? Hear me out. Joel Embiid, I'm fairly certain, did not pick up a basketball until he was like 16 years old. He played soccer. He played other sports. I think played rugby too or something. But Joel Embiid didn't pick up a basketball until he was like 16 years old. 2 years later, he was a 5-star recruit going to Kansas, one of the greatest blue blood programs in all of college basketball. 5-star recruit. He had picked up a basketball 2 years earlier. A year after that, he was a top 3 draft pick in the NBA. Now he's an MVP caliber and maybe in the argument for one of the best basketball players in the world. Didn't start playing basketball until he was 16 years old. How on earth could because physically he is just better than everybody else. How could a guy like Joel Embiid be listed as one of the top players when you have got a guy like Damian Lillard, who I'm fairly certain has been playing basketball, organized basketball, probably from the moment he could dribble. Probably from 5, 6 years old, organized basketball, or Scoot Henderson. Travel ball, AAU. Heck, went to the G League at age 17. How come that guy's not better than Joel Embiid? Because Joel Embiid's physically better. I have a plan. I've always had a plan to fix U.S. men's soccer. Nobody likes it, but I firmly believe it would work. Here's what you do. And it's a little tougher now. I used to have this plan back before NIL existed. Brenden, it's a little tougher now because NIL is paying college players. But I was like, here's what you do. You get Mark Cuban or Jeff Bezos, right? You get one of those guys to take a boatload of money. You go on a cross-country search, and you go and you find the best high school athletes right now. 5-star football, 5-star basketball players. You go track stars. You go find them. You pay them a multi-million-dollar salary. Train them for 2 years to play soccer. We'd win the World Cup. Now, everybody thinks I'm an idiot for saying that, but again, how did Joel Embiid become a 5-star basketball player in like 2 years? How? Oh, because he's physically imposing. Hakeem Olajuwon, famously, who's a Hall of Famer, didn't play basketball until he was like 17 years old. Just because you didn't play soccer your entire childhood, I think you could pick up the fundamentals of the game. Invest in it. Find the best athletes. Go win the World Cup. But until then, we're going to lose to Uruguay. And it's just going to happen. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk some NBA. Klay Thompson is out. He's leaving. He's gone from Golden State. He's going to Dallas. Taxes might have been a factor. Oh, that's coming up. That's next, 620 Rip City Radio. Yeah, I'm really mad, by the way. Really mad at Klay Thompson. Not that I care that he left the Golden State Warriors. Don't. Not that I care that he joined the Dallas Mavericks. Actually, I think it's kind of a savvy move. I am mad at Klay Thompson because he threw a wrench in one of my favorite arguments and really just kind of kicked me in the argument guts yesterday because for years and years and years, I have heard one of the things that is dissuading players from joining the Portland Trail Blazers has always been, well, those taxes. Those state taxes in Oregon, nobody wants to go and pay all those taxes. And I'm like, that doesn't make a lick of sense to me. It doesn't. It is the most convenient argument, right? Because I think the biggest example of the whole taxes thing was LaMarcus Aldridge left, right? And didn't LaMarcus Aldridge pretty much hint at like going back to Texas where there was no. Now, interestingly enough, he just went to the San Antonio Spurs that at that time was top 5 organization in the NBA.
It didn't go to Houston or Dallas.
No. He went to the Spurs where Tim Duncan was and Greg Popovich was.
And Kawhi Leonard.
And Kawhi Leonard was. And it was like, well,
I probably would have too.
But those taxes, And
as it turns out, though.
Well, here's the thing. There has always been, why can't the Blazers, and luckily the Blazers, not luckily, but it's a tough spot. The Blazers are not in a position right now to get any player other than young guys, building blocks, and some draft picks, right? That's where the Blazers are moving forward. Future draft picks. Hopefully we're done with the expiring contract stuff. We are done with the sign and then release stuff. And it's like, look, are you on the timeline? Do you fit the profile of this team? Denny Avdia, he fits the timeline. He fits the profile. 6'9", guy that can shoot, making about $10 million a year. 23 years old, I believe. There you go. Perfect. That guy fits the timeline. And we talked about it with Bill Oram yesterday. I mean, if you can look at this Blazers roster, Brenden, squint, close one eye, tilt your head a little bit, you're like, I can kind of see something.
You can.
You can kind of see a core.
But it's fool's gold.
Being built here. Don't know what it ultimately will produce, but you can kind of see something being built up as opposed to what it was, which was kind of Damian Lillard as a superstar. And it's like, how do we get guys to come play with him? And you're trying to play that superstar game. More on that in a moment. But I've always heard two things. Oh, the Blazers can't get free agents. The Blazers can't get free agents. It's too small of a market. And I'm like, that doesn't make a lick of sense. It's too small of a market. The other thing I have heard, which I understand why this might be a reason why, is that the African-American population is it's probably the smallest of any NBA market. Probably between them and Milwaukee.
Maybe New Orleans?
No, New Orleans, huge African-American population.
Market size, I'm sorry.
I'm saying, so it's like the Portland, the Northwest, not a
100%
African-American culture. Like, I get it, and I don't get it, but I can understand. So my thought would be, okay, so if the biggest thing in terms of bringing in players is cultural population and diverse populations and taxes, why aren't the Atlanta Hawks the best team in the NBA? Like, seriously, like what?
That's a fair argument.
Why aren't the Atlanta Hawks the absolute, no doubt, best team in the NBA? Because more than just those things, more than just the income tax and the culture of the city and everything else, organizations matter, chances to win, top-down organizational structure. That kind of stuff matters. And I know, because Brenden told me during the break, but I know that a couple of you probably got a little chuckle of like, oh, hey, Justin, you said taxes don't matter. Klay Thompson's agent flat out said, yeah, we had offers of more money and more years. We wanted to go to Dallas because a chance to win and taxes. Okay. I noticed that San Antonio was, now I don't know if San Antonio is shopping for an aging Klay Thompson, but they just went out and got an aging Chris Paul. No, but they're not going to be in a championship hunt for the next 2 to 3 years. I noticed that the Houston Rockets weren't on that list at all. I noticed that, I know Miami always is on people's radar, but Orlando wasn't on that list. But I don't think they have any income tax in Florida.
Actually, Justin, Orlando was on the short list for Klay until they gave the money to KCP. So I'll say that. I don't know how realistic it was,
right.
but they were in the mix.
Fair.
They were in the mix. But I see what point you're making. I said
There's
both can be true, Justin. Your
But
point
what
can
I'm
be
saying
true,
is
but then
it's-
I think you need to take a step and go,
It's
maybe for them rich guys, they care about the pennies.
It's such a convenient argument.
is.
It's
It
so,
is.
like,
I'll give you that. It's
Because again,
lazy.
LaMarcus Aldridge, it's the taxes. See, it's these taxes. Like he went to San Antonio. That's why he went there. Trust me, if the Dallas Mavericks were in the play-in like they were last year, Klay Thompson ain't going to the Dallas Mavericks just because of tax
100%.
relief. So that being said, his agent flat out said state taxes were a factor, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. But nonetheless, here we sit in the NBA where now Donovan Mitchell just signed an extension, but he is on this is year 3 of him in Cleveland. Jason Tatum, he's the richest guy in the NBA at $314 million. But we saw, look, Paul George, he is heading to the 76ers. Chris Paul is heading to the San Antonio Spurs. And before that, he was on the Warriors. And before that, he was on the he was on the Suns. And before, and then the Rockets. And player movement has never been more prominent and more normalized in the league. And a friend of the program, Sean Hyken, put this out on X, and he talked about this a year ago. So I want to credit Hyken on this one. Sean wrote a year ago, in 2023, a superstar requesting a trade or changing teams is no longer a league-shaking event. It's an expected part of the NBA transaction cycle, accompanied by an interminable cycle of leaks, counter leaks, the trade machine proposals from fans on Twitter. Oh, we've seen some trade machine proposals. It doesn't hit the same anymore. James Harden is on his 3rd one of these in less than 3 years. This was from a year ago, and it barely registers now. Star movement these days feels more like playing Mad Libs with recognizable names than roster building that makes sense. Chris Paul is on the Warriors now. Sure. Well, you can now substitute. Chris Paul is on the Spurs now. I've been talking about and I love the NBA, and I know the NBA has its hardcore fans, but if we're all being honest, is the NBA product as good as it could or should be? Anybody that watched the clipped show on Hulu saw, that was the Donald Sterling thing, as interesting enough of a story. It also, in my opinion, coincided with LeBron James and a lot of other players, what we have now commonly referred to as the player empowerment era of the NBA. New commissioner, new boss, Adam Silver came in and said to the players, and I'm not saying he's right, I'm not saying he's wrong, I'm saying this was a different message. But you look at the Donald Sterling decision that Adam Silver did, and it was like, the players, you guys are in charge of this league. I have no doubt that before Adam Silver, and I'm not saying that David Stern would be wrong for this, but David Stern had a different vision of the league, that stuffy old owner gets to do whatever he wants because he's a stuffy old owner. And Adam Silver came out and said, nope, you're banned. And we're going to make you sell the team. And I'm going to I'm going to cite a oft overlooked bylaw that says I could work in the best interest of the league. And we have seen that trend more and more and more. We saw that in the bubble. We've seen that with social issues. We've seen that more and more in terms of players feeling comfortable. Like, teams get charged with tampering all the time. You know who doesn't get charged with tampering? All the players who are tampering, right? Players are empowered to, I have 3 years left on a contract. I request a trade. Like, that was never a thing back in the day. So here's what I'm wondering. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use all the power and leverage that you have. Here's what I'm asking. Is it good for the league in general? Overall, is it good for the league? The fact that the league's best player post Michael Jordan is LeBron James. He played for 4 different teams. Played for the Cavs, played for the Heat, back to the Cavs, went to the Lakers. And if he went to another team, would it be earth-shattering? Would it be surprising? Klay Thompson, who will go into the Basketball Hall of Fame as, I don't know, you go in as a player, but he will be recognized. Whatever happens in this latter part of his career, Klay Thompson will be recognized for his time with the Golden State Warriors. He is synonymous with that organization. He's now Dallas Maverick. Was anybody shocked yesterday? I wasn't. Maybe I'm out on but I'm like, yeah, Paul George is a Sixer now. Paul George, one of the best players of his generation. He was a Pacer, he was a Thunder, he was a Clipper, now he's a Sixer. Players just move. Kevin Durant, obviously, boom, 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 hippity hop, hop, skip, and a jump all around the league. Is it good for the league? Yes, Brenden. Good.
Yeah, no, I mean, to your point, like, I don't know if surprised is the right word, but still just like, not just like, shook. It happened a little bit, right? Because everyone can say something, and then to watch Klay Thompson just be like, ho hum, I'm going to go join one of the 2 teams in the NBA Finals.
I know.
Right? Like, that to me is still a bit surprising. Call Klay way more surprising because I think Paul George is like, Kawhi, I am done with you and your niece. And that didn't really surprise me, but I still thought cooler heads would prevail and Klay wouldn't leave. Like, it's still, you step back today and go, Klay's not a warrior. Like, that's kind of weird, is it not? Paul George, I get it, but Klay's been there forever, man.
But I guess the point is, when I heard the news yesterday, I was in the middle of a workout, no big deal. I go to the gym. Love dropping that in.
Was that where you were when I texted you the first time too? Yesterday?
No, I was working in my shop.
Okay,
AKA my garage. I got some home projects on on the horizon.
Because I text you and I go, I haven't heard back from Justin yet. I wonder if he's at the gym. And then you got back to like 5 minutes later after I said that. But I was like, might have been gym, but shedding up. All right.
Yeah, I was in my my garage is my shop.
Garage, gotcha.
Yeah. I'm working on some things. Building a new bar.
It's that time of year, man. Absolutely.
Building a new bar, no big deal. I'll put some pictures up. I get a little thirst trappy on the with the stuff I build. We'll see how it turns out. Either way, neither here nor there. But when I heard the news, like, oh yeah, I thought it would either be Dallas or LA. I figured it'd be one of those two. By the way, LA, a lot of taxes, in case anybody's wondering. They still manage to get players.
Maybe that's why LeBron's still looking for their teammate, Justin.
Maybe that's the Lakers just seem to be able to get all the players regardless of taxes. Like, nobody pays more taxes than LA. Anyways, all right, let me start on this.
Hey, Klay's agent had to bring it up, Justin. We know who
I
to
know,
blame.
so I'm so mad at him.
We know mad at
I saw that and I was like, I saw red. I'm like, you. Anyways. We have seen Adam Silver, I think, in the last couple of years, do a very good job of reining in the super team stuff, right? Super teams don't, like, you might be saying, well, Justin, now the Dallas Mavericks have Klay and Kyrie and Luka. It's like, yeah, that's not anything new. I was around in the late 90s when the Houston Rockets went and got an aging Charles Barkley to combine with an aging Akeem Olajuwon and an aging Clyde Drexler. That's nothing new. I was there in the 2000s when the Lakers had no Shaq but had Kobe in his prime, but went out and got an aging Gary Payton, an aging Karl Malone. This stuff, like Klay is aging. He just is. He's on the twilight of his NBA career, a stellar NBA career, but he is an aging superstar. This is not a super team. And I think Adam Silver has done a good job. And I think the league just in general of kind of tamping down the super team stuff. But, and with the second apron, and if you want to go out and go pay all this money, there's going to be actual consequences and repercussions. I think. But are we to a point now, and maybe we're past the windmill on this. Shout out Back to the Future 3. You go past the windmill, you're going to go into Clayton Ravine, Shonash Ravine, and then Eastwood Ravine. It had 3 names, that ravine.
It did.
But we may be too far past this. But I look at a team like the Celtics, right? I guess if you were to say, name me one player in the league, you would be shocked they went to another team. I think the only player on that list is Jason Tatum. I would be shocked.
Anthony Edwards.
I disagree. I would not be shocked that if in 2 years Anthony Edwards isn't playing for the Lakers.
Ja Morant.
Same stuff.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I think it's because, and we've seen it in baseball all the time, right? You come up in a certain market and you make your reputation, and then the Yankees and the Dodgers, the Red Sox just steal you. There's going to be a point where the Lakers are going to be post LeBron. They're going to go star hunting. You want to know why? Because they've been doing it since the Magic left, took a couple years. Guess what? They went and got Shaq.
Hey, they had a gap between Kobe and LeBron, though. Those are some glorious
They
years.
had how big of a gap was that?
It's like 5 years of like when they were just horrible. But you're right. Just fair.
5 years.
But it was
Blazers are going to be 5 years in a rebuild here.
Remember that was
soon.
like that was the stretch when like the Blazers beat the Warriors like 12 times in a row, set the record. Like it was fun to beat up on them when they were bad.
But the Lakers, you're right. They every once in a while will dip, but they don't dip much because they go and they get Shaq. They drafted Kobe, and then had the 2 iterations of the Laker dynasty, which is one with Shaq and one with Paul Gasol, and then you had the Kobe farewell tour, and then Kobe retires. A couple years later, they get LeBron. And then LeBron goes and realizes, I can't win with these kids right now. And he goes and gets Anthony Davis. And there will be a time where LeBron goes away and somebody else will join in. Now, maybe this whole apron. So you say Ja Morant. You say Anthony Edwards.
Just young stars that I don't think their franchise would just let go necessarily.
I'm with you, but would you put it past Anthony Edwards or Ja Morant to just be like, I'm not feeling it. You're not giving me help. I demand a trade.
No.
I demand a trade.
Because that's commonplace in the league.
That's what I'm saying. That's the whole. And so when I saw, hey, Paul George is a 76er, 15 years ago, shockwaves around the league, right? Now it's like, yeah, it's what we do in July. Right? This is the NBA. This is just what we do. We go from one superstar goes to it. And I'm wondering if all this player movement, it's interesting. We're talking about it in July. I get it. Is it good? Is it good for the league though? I mean, like the last guy who we thought was never going to be part of it, I guess, was Dame. The only other person I would say I would be shocked if Steph Curry went and played for another team. That would shock me.
You can take that to the bank. You can take my soul to the bank.
That's the one name in this league who would be like, Steph Curry is a New York Knick now. You know what I mean? That would freak me out. That would be stop me in my tracks. But other than that, LeBron's changed teams 4 times. If Giannis decided I'm done with Milwaukee, which he kind of threatened to, that wouldn't surprise me. I guess maybe if Jokic left Denver. But even still, their second apron, they don't win. I could see Jokic going like, yeah, I need to get out of here. Just wonder, like, if might be fun in the in the short term, but is it good for the league? We have got our countdown to kickoff for college football. That is next on 620 Rip City Radio. Yeah, this is a very appropriate intro to what we are about to talk about, Brenden. And I didn't even tell you what the subject was going to be. It just feels like we're locked in right now with the particular music. We are 60 days away from college football kicking off, and still a lot of stuff going around, a lot of buzz going around. Oregon football recruiting, I think, with this latest commitment, just put themselves back into the top 5 for the 2025 class. Now, I have a hard time getting excited about the 2025 class, especially in an era of transfer portals. And these are commitments. These aren't actual signings. These are just commitments. Kids flip. You get one transfer in, that starts a whole domino effect, right? And so I have a hard time getting all that excited. But what I will say is that there seems to be a knack that Dan Lanning has had in the recruiting game of being able to get these players, these high-caliber, high-rated players to commit. And just in that, it's a volume game, right? So a lot of people around the country going like, wait, how is Oregon pulling it off? Well, what was the song there? What was the song that we just played? That was Nelly. That was, hey, must be the money. Oh, it must be well, we've got some numbers. I've got some numbers. I've got some interesting statistics. I've got some NIL funding estimates that say it might not just be the money, but we need some cool college football tunes. Cue the drums. Let's go on campus. All right. This is from NIL-NCAA.com. Now, I don't know if this is an actual NCAA thing, but it's a lot of people were referencing it on the internet yesterday, so I'm just going to assume it's fairly accurate. This is a projected NIL collective funding by NCAA schools, and so a lot of people, and I even threw it out there a couple of times, feel that, of course Oregon is being able to clean up in the transfer portal. Of course they're cleaning up in recruiting. All that Nike money, right? All that Nike money back at, and I've said, yeah, Phil Knight is one of the most, if not the most significant booster in recent college football history. He just is. Turned Oregon into and it was him, and it was Mike Bellotti, and it was a lot of other people around. But without the funding and the influence and that's a swoosh. With all that influence, Oregon football isn't anywhere it is right now. I'm not denying that. But I've also said, while Nike and Phil Knight have done unbelievable things at Oregon, there's a lot of other very, very wealthy, rich people across the country who do not care about Oregon football. So this is the funding estimate. These are estimates. Funding estimate for NIL collectives. Who's got the most cash? By the way, hint, it ain't Oregon. And if these numbers are accurate, some of these might surprise you. Brenden, any guess? Number one shouldn't surprise you. Any guess as to which team, which program has the biggest collective in all of college football?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M is 5th. Very close. But you're on the right track. Same state.
Texas.
Hook 'em. $22 million, their funding estimate for the upcoming year. They also have that's their collective funding estimate. They make $57 million, by the way, in ticket sales. After that, in terms of collective, it is Ohio State. Ohio State at $20 million in their now that's the money that they have to pay their players, because you think about contributions. It's like Texas total support $135 million. That is donations, that's ticket sales, that's total revenue for the athletic department is $135 million. $77 million, by the way, in contributions. Right behind them in terms of contributions, you've got LSU, $75 million. So Texas is 1. Ohio State is sitting at number 2. LSU 3. Georgia 4. Texas A&M 5. Michigan, Alabama, Florida, Clemson, Oklahoma, Penn State. The usual names. Here's where it gets real interesting. Indiana right now has a funding estimate of $13 million. Indiana. Now, I don't know where they're spending that money, but it ain't on the field. Michigan State at $13 million.
Gross.
Virginia has a funding estimate of $12 million. You got to go all the way down. First team from the old Pac-12 now heading into the Big Ten. According to this, now, again, I don't know how accurate these numbers are, and I also think that Nike and Division Street and the collective and everything else has been very crafty of the way they've done. But according to this, Oregon only has a $10 million funding estimate. That's for their collective, and a total support revenue of $64 million, which is about half of Texas and Ohio State and LSU. So everybody seems to think, now again, how accurate are these numbers? We don't know. Also, you know what numbers you're not going to see on here? The ones that private institutions like Notre Dame and USC. Notre Dame and USC, they don't have to report any of their money or any of their findings, but it always just seems like, oh yeah, Oregon, they're paying everybody. It's all this money. It's just spending Phil Knight's cash, which that's part of it. But they're barely in the top 20 in terms of overall revenue, and their funding estimate is at $10 million as compared to Texas, Ohio State, and LSU, all over $20 million. So maybe it's the money. Maybe it's Dan Lanning. Maybe Nike and Phil Knight have gotten a very crafty way, though, of doing more than just NIL. So interesting numbers there. 60 days away, though, from college football kickoff. We are just minutes away from hour 2. That's next, 620 Rip City Radio. It is 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Justin Myers with you. NBA champion Jason Tatum will sign the richest extension in NBA history. 5 years, $314 million. Speaking of extension, Donovan Mitchell will continue with the Cleveland Cavaliers. 3 years, $150 million in his deal. And Klay Thompson is now a Maverick. The Mavs sent a pair of second-round picks to Golden State to sign him to a 3-year, $50 million deal. More Celtics news. The Boston majority owner announced that they are planning on making the franchise for sale, likely fetching, I'm no financier, but somewhere around $5+ billion. A friend of the program, Devon Pouncey, joins us in hour number 3, but hour 2 of Rip City Morning starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. We have got Make or Miss coming up in 20 minutes. A 4th of July traditional get off my lawn. I don't know if it's a grumpy old man thing or if it's a Justin has to get up early in the morning thing, but I do this every single year because I'm noticing it is still going on in the world. So, got a bit of a grumpy old man get off my lawn take coming up in approximately 45 minutes. A lot of money being thrown around. A lot of money being thrown around in the NBA. We were talking about it earlier. Is it good for the league? Is it good for the league, all this player movement? Because, I mean, it's not like the NFL is immune to this, but you look at like quarterbacks. You look at quarterbacks in the NFL. It was so shocking when Tom Brady left the New England Patriots and went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So shocking. And you look back at that Dynasty documentary that was on Apple TV Plus, it was like, oh, he wanted to leave like 5 years earlier. He wanted to leave New England like so many times before, but in the NFL, it's just not quite what was done in the league. You think about how shocking would it be, honestly, if Patrick Mahomes plays for any other team in his career? And you never know, like, there's the, Joe Montana played for the Chiefs at the end of his career, and obviously Tom Brady played for the Bucs, and there's a handful of those guys that are synonymous with one team, even won championships with those teams, but just ultimately they move on at the end of their career, trying to have one last run. But in the NFL, right? Justin Herbert's going to be a Charger, likely for the foreseeable future. Josh Allen's going to be a Buffalo Bill for the foreseeable. C.J. Stroud is going to be a Texan, and I do think that is one of the things that many, many other reasons, but that's one of the things that the NFL does have, I think, over the NBA, is it's really hard to find a quarterback, but when you do, generally you get to keep that quarterback, unless you're the Seahawks and Russell Wilson. Then you have to go through a divorce and a breakup, and sometimes it happens. It's not a hard and fast rule, but usually you look at what is going on with, when the teams find a quarterback, somebody, even like the Detroit Lions after they let Stafford go, Goff's going to be there for a while. I saw this on ESPN, might have been yesterday, and we like to poke fun, especially during the breaks, at some of the ridiculous topics that First Take comes up with. Sometimes they strike gold, though. Brenden, let's eliminate Patrick Mahomes from the discussion, because every football discussion starts and stops with Patrick Mahomes. And I'm thinking about this because Jason Tatum just signed a 5-year, $314 million. The Boston Celtics are financially invested in Jason Tatum for the foreseeable future, and Jaylen Brown. But for the foreseeable future, the Boston Celtics have linked themselves with Jason Tatum, and I think it's a smart move. You got to keep that guy. He might be the best player in the NBA. I know statistics and Jokic, but when it comes right down to it, there's a lot of teams I think that would love to have Jason Tatum. They've locked him in. Let's eliminate Patrick Mahomes. Because in this question, that's the ultimate easy answer. Like, if you were an NFL franchise and you could essentially just put the, hey, you are on our team forever label on anybody, Patrick Mahomes would be one. Who's next? Who's next on that list? Right? Because the Boston Celtics basically told Jason Tatum, thank you for the championship. You're one of us now. You're forever going to be a Boston Celtic, or that's how you will be remembered. If you could, outside of Patrick Mahomes, make anybody in the NFL the highest paid, the richest contract in NFL history, who would it go to right now? Other than Patrick Mahomes.
Justin Jefferson?
You would go non-quarterback.
I would consider it.
You would go non-quarterback.
Just, you asked me just cold off
Yeah.
off the top of my head. Justin Jefferson.
I'm surprised you didn't go Joe Burrow.
Again, the injuries with me and him. I love Joe Burrow, but he's had a couple season-ending injuries now, and I don't like that.
Here's my list of candidates.
Justin
Jefferson, let's throw him out there. Another non-quarterback, Christian McCaffrey? Put him on there?
Yeah, I would, but again, this is the first year ever that he made it through a season without any right? So
I know.
Same
It
kind
also
of,
helps that he doesn't play for Carolina anymore. They just
True.
ran him into the
This-
ground
this-
for all
this
those
is true.
years. It's like, it turns out this guy might help us get to a Super Bowl. Maybe let's protect him. Quarterback-wise, Burrow, Herbert, Allen.
Lamar?
I put Lamar Jackson in there. I do. I put Lamar Jackson in there. I put Trevor Lawrence in there. I know they didn't play all that well last year. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be great. Is it too early for C.J. Stroud?
No.
He's in there, isn't he?
It's not.
He's in that conversation, isn't he?
Like, Justin, you and I have had or seen.
He is an organizational changing talent.
Right. You and I have seen in the NBA. I don't mean to have Alan Crabb catching strays 2 days in a row.
Can I tell you? I've told this story before, and it was funny. One of the craziest nights of my life. Craziest nights of my life was with Devon Pouncey, who's going to be joining us in hour number 3, and we ended up in the club, in the VIP with Alan Crabb.
Oh, yes.
I was in the VIP of the club drinking Hennessy with Alan Crabb.
Oh, man, that's the way to
And I
live,
did
man.
not pay for it.
But, no.
You know who did? Neil O'Shea's extension.
But to that point, like, Justin and I have seen.
So let's just pump the brakes on the Alan Crabb strays.
Yeah,
but
but
I
like,
see what you're saying.
The reason that I say that Stroud deserves it already is because, Justin, we've seen it in the NBA. A guy can have, I don't want to call it a lucky year, but an aberration year.
Yeah.
The NFL,
See it in Major League Baseball, too, every once in a while. A guy will have a contract year, will go to the Dominican Republic.
Right.
Come back. He's a little bigger, hits a lot more home runs, right? And then all of a sudden signs for a big, fat deal, and then all of a sudden stops hitting home runs. Weird.
Right. And I think in the NFL, you can't, even at a position, you can luck into a good year as a receiver or even as a running back. You can't luck into a good year playing quarterback. That's
agree.
why I think Stroud
so.
is just, he's the next dude.
So
Non-quarterback, though, I want to throw in there? Micah Parsons.
So I was gonna get to that. Yeah. So non-quarterbacks, it's Micah Parsons, it's Myles Garrett,
Justin's guy.
T.J. Watt.
Yeah,
I think I put T.J. Watt in there. Now T.J. Watt, I love T.J. Watt, but he's kind of like, I don't want to say he's a one-trick pony, but his job is rushing the passer. That's his job. Whereas you look at Micah Parsons, he does so many things.
He does.
He does so many things. Myles Garrett, same thing. Like, he does so many things, can play all different positions, but I will ride for T.J. Watt. Anybody else on defense that we're missing? I think those are kind of the guys, right?
There really hasn't been anybody emerge as the next Aaron Donald as a defensive lineman. Like the edge rushers we've talked about, but I'm talking because Myles Garrett's not an interior lineman like Aaron Donald was.
No, I
right?
mean, T.J. Watt, he's not interior, you're right. He's an edge rusher.
I don't think there's been an interior lineman who's been like, hey, pay attention to me like Aaron Donald.
Well, thing that makes Micah Parsons so valuable is you put him right in the middle of the field and he can defend everything. And in the NFL, like, that's what you have to be able to do. You have to be able to defend everything because, Christian McCaffrey, as a non-quarterback, guess what he does? Everything. He does everything. Deebo Samuel, that guy does everything. So, yeah, I would put Parsons, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. Those are my defensive players. I don't think I'm missing one. Bosa? Nah. Close? Nah, not in
Either one of them? Not?
Well, Joey Bosa, I think, is the better Bosa, right?
That's the one for
the Chargers.
Oh, so what about the one for the Niners? Thought he was pretty good, too.
Maybe I've got my Bosas mixed up.
I thought it was the one for the Chargers was maybe not as good as the one for the Niners.
I think you're right.
But maybe I'm wrong, too. I just know they both went to Ohio State and were really good.
I got to look it up.
But, yeah, I think those guys are in that next category. I don't think they're quite as good as TJ Watt or Myles Garrett. I think that's kind of it, unless there's somebody.
So Joey Bosa's Charger. Nick Bosa is a 49er. I think Nick Bosa is the better Bosa.
There's no defensive back you'd give that crown. I'm trying to think, like, Sauce Gardner's got.
Sauce Gardner. But
he's got the kind of swagger, but he's got to prove it a little bit more. And, like, I'm trying to think, Justin, when was the last, like,
I think I like Jalen Ramsey.
Getting older now.
He is, but like
at a time.
3 years ago, Jalen Ramsey would have been the guy.
Like thinking further back, like, just those Hall of Fame DBs, right? Like Ed Reed would have been in that mix, right? You're your guy too.
We don't bring up any safeties of that era.
I was
before
getting there. Come on now.
The best safety of that era.
But yeah, that guy. You could really
shampoo is a shampoo model now.
We could expand that criteria a little bit.
But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. Like we joke, but like Polamalu and Ed Reed, like that was an era that we really haven't seen since. Like now, like
did you throw Ronnie Lott in there with those guys, even though
previous
there's
a different era, but different style.
Yeah,
there are people that will say Ronnie Lott's the greatest safety of all time. I am biased. I can't be held responsible because I have my thoughts on who the greatest safety of all time is. But you think about like what Ed Reed and Polamalu were able to do there in the 2000s. I don't know of a guy like Micah Parsons is kind of that guy, but he does it at the linebacker position. We don't really have like one of those big dynamic safeties in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean,
unless I'm missing one, and I might just be absolutely blanking on somebody. But anyways, I think it's C.J. Stroud might be the guy. Like if you were to attach your organization to one player in the NFL that's not named Patrick Mahomes,
I probably would.
I think I gotta go C.J. Stroud. Just that guy is so good. All right, coming up next, we have got Make or Miss on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, coming up in hour number 3, Devon Pouncey is going to be joining us live in studio. Got the confirmation, so we're good.
Always good to get morning of, right?
It was my bad. I was supposed to text him last night to make sure, because I don't want to just assume.
I'm glad he made it back countryside, though.
Yeah, he's
So
coming
that's
back
important.
from Canada. But also, it's one of the weird parts of this job of, in particular, morning radio is like I'll see like some news that I think maybe my friends would like this, or maybe I should fire this off in the group chat, or maybe my wife would like to see this, or maybe this is actually something important. And then you got to look up at the clock and be like, all right, when are normal people up? Because I have no earthly idea. Like if you were to guess, Brenden, when do you think normal people get up? I don't have any idea when normal people just get awake.
Well, considering that, well,
Like if you have to be at the office at 9.
Yeah, I'd say normal people, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Now, that being said, Justin,
That feels late.
there are times when I'm just, again, you asked me, I'm just saying, there are times when I get home and I still got people sleeping in my house at 10 o'clock. Now, granted, got some younger teenagers, but, it's it's definitely interesting when my whole day's done. I'm like, oh, you haven't even gotten up yet.
But, yeah, so I want to fire off wait, are these people up? Because people fire off texts and stuff to me at like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, dude, I'm asleep. Like, you should know this by now. 11 o'clock, that's a no-go. So Pounce is going to join us in hour number 3. Obviously, a great day for him to come in and join the big show because we've got a ton of NBA stuff to talk about. Also, you will all get off my lawn coming up in approximately 20 or so minutes. Right now, let's dive into Make or Miss.
All right, firing up Make or Miss here on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
See, Justin? Klay's agent said taxes matter.
Yeah, he did. I have a hunch playing in the NBA Finals maybe matter just a little bit more, but sure.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Let's dive into this a little bit more because I'm fascinated by this. More than the taxes thing, because you know my feeling on the whole taxes thing. I think it might play a factor for some, especially maybe a guy like Klay Thompson, who has played in the Bay Area of California, who is no stranger from taking taxes from Silicon Valley and as well from the Golden State Warriors. Maybe it was a factor. Make or miss, it was smart of Klay to go for a 3-year deal as opposed to a 4-year deal. Because wasn't that also the thing? Was he was offered a 4-year deal, but said want to win a championship. So I don't know who was offering 4 years. Lakers,
Orlando. Before they went to KCP, I bet. Like
maybe
I would be on. Like, yeah, I'd feel.
Okay, but didn't they have to give compensation though?
They did a couple second. Again, the silliness of the new aprons and all that. The deal was technically a sign and trade.
Yes.
It will go down in the history
But the
books.
Warriors didn't want Klay Thompson on their team. He wanted to leave. They didn't want to re-sign him. Well, I shouldn't say that. They didn't want him on their team for $50 million a year.
Yes, correct. And,
we can't pay you 50. 33.
Question for you, Justin.
And taxes?
Do you
But do you think it was smart of him to go 3 years knowing significant injury history? He got an ACL and an Achilles, right? Significant injury history, but he goes 3 years but takes a deal with the Mavericks because he wants to win another championship. You think that was smart? I
love the move. I mean, if he can stay healthy, think about it. You replace Derrick Jones Jr. with Klay Thompson. So if I'm a Maverick fan, I'm feeling really good today.
I agree.
Now, granted,
I just found it interesting from a economics perspective that there was a 4-year deal out there for Klay and was like, nah, I'm gonna.
Because that's the thing.
I don't think he's playing past this contract, right?
Probably not. Now that's
leaving a lot of money on the table.
Well, that's
for a ring, and you have 4 of them,
right? And I think that's where the middle ground was found. Justin, on one hand, the Warriors probably could have offered you the most money, but they didn't want to. So then you go out and you're like, a team that's probably not going to win a title could offer me the most money.
Mm-hmm.
Then you find the middle ground of, well, the Mavericks can offer really good money and a way better chance to win than the Warriors, which we never thought we'd say. But I'd rather take Luka and Kyrie than Steph and Draymond right now.
Now, I will say this about the whole taxes thing, because situations are situational. If we were doing what my wife lovingly refers to as Justin math, 4-year deal with the Lakers, say at the same amount. Now, I don't know if the Lakers could offer him $200 million over 4 years, but let's say 4-year deal with the Lakers worth $160.
Sure.
Or, which is $10 million more than the $150 he got, but like, do you think he factored the whole, I'm going to make more money in my pocket in the long term because of the whole income tax thing? My 3 years at $150 for the Mavericks goes a lot further than the 4 years maybe I would have signed with the Lakers. Or maybe the Clippers as well, right? Because weren't the Clippers in the mix there? They just lost Paul George. They need a dynamic scorer.
I mean,
I guess they don't play the same position, but I don't know. I would imagine the Clippers were somewhat in the conversation there.
And again, the other thing too, Justin.
Clippers don't have any second-round picks to give away, though, do they?
No, and you know, this was clearly a thing where Klay wanted to maybe forge his own path a little bit, maybe get out from prove maybe he wasn't the best writer, right? Because when you look back, the Splash Bros, but who gets all the attention in Golden State?
Durant? Well, maybe the greatest shooter of all time who broke all the records, right. I would imagine.
I would say Durant and Curry. For those two, they get the credit for the runs. But at the same token, like, I really like this move. If he can stay healthy and can find his niche, like the Mavericks could be one of the more fun teams to watch in the NBA next year.
Better addition. Sixers adding Paul George, Mavericks adding Klay Thompson. Hold on. Considering what they are being added to, Warriors were in the finals last year. Now they upgrade with Klay Thompson. I would assume an upgrade. Aging, but still upgrade. Sixers, not anywhere close to the finals last year. Now, a lot of that's injuries. But then they add Paul George. Bigger improvement in the aggregate, considering what they already have in the cupboard.
Yeah, I'm going to say Paul George. It's close, but I'm going to say Paul George. Younger, longer runway, more stars. And
got the Celtics just sitting there, though.
Yeah, and if it works, I love Luka, Kyrie, and Klay, but Justin, that's essentially a 3-guard lineup. The reason it's going to work is because Klay's a moderately good defender. I guess even that's going to cause some defensive problems. Now,
yeah, that's the thing. Like
we kind of glossed over that.
Talk about Derrick Jones Jr.
He was a good defender,
but Klay was at his time a premier defender.
Nowadays,
but that's an Achilles and an ACL ago.
So again, I think this is almost a perfect move. If you want to look at the negatives, like they could be horrible defensively.
But they might score 140 a game.
They might, yes.
Let's do it. I want to see. We need that back in the NBA. Just give me a team that does not care. Like
just cherry picks.
Just puts up buckets, and we're not going to worry about defense. Now, I don't know how sustainable that is, and I don't know if you win a championship that way. But, man, I want to see it.
Probably have a coach or GM fired.
I want to see it. Like the Suns of, like, 07.
So let me ask you this,
like
Justin. In a pure fun way, and again, like you know this, you and I like to give each other a hard time sometimes. But when you saw this headline about Klay, I'm assuming you put 2 and 2 together. Like, oh boy, Brenden might say something here tomorrow morning. What was more like triggering for you, knowing that 3 weeks ago I was going to come in rip-roaring thrilled about Bryson DeChambeau winning?
Yeah.
Or Klay Thompson's agent literally mentioning taxes.
This one seems to have you a little more giddy.
Okay.
This one seems to have you. I was so mad. I saw that and I was like, you SOB.
Like, honestly, I don't care. It's just kind of funny that Justin and I have had this little just fun debate for like three years.
I still stand by my thing that for some players, sometimes, but the idea that. And the reason why I came up with this whole thing was like, oh, well, Portland can't do it because of taxes. And it's like, no.
Your Hawks theory holds water. It does.
Hawks, the Magic, the Pelicans.
But you just mentioned 3 teams who have no winning culture.
That's what I'm saying. That has way more to do with whether or not free agents want to go there or players want to sign there than taxes. Because those are places, like, again, those are all places that are very low, if zero income tax, and cultural a better fit than, say, the Pacific Northwest for your average basketball player.
And not to mention,
but the only thing, like, I do think people get freaked out. Players get freaked out just because the Blazers are the furthest away.
They are.
They're the furthest away.
They are. They are. And I think a lot of players.
But if you had a winning culture, like.
See, and that's the thing with the Blazers that's so frustrating, Justice. Historically, they are. They're one of the better franchises all time in the NBA. They just haven't won the big championship series enough. You go look, like, as far as all-time winning percentage, I think the Blazers are 10th or 11th. This stretch, the last 3 years, like, the Blazers don't really have stretches like this historically in their franchise history. But the difference is, the rings. And, again, when, what's 18 plus 17? When 35 of your titles have been won by 2 franchises, add in the Warriors and Bulls, and you're talking 44 franchises won by 4 teams, or 44 titles by 4 teams, Justin. Like, that's the NBA, right? The NFL, there's so much more parity to it, or, at least historically. But
by the way, Jason Tatum got $300 million. Massachusetts, their tax rate.
Pretty high.
Well, they have I'm just learning this, flat personal income tax rate of 5%, but that goes up when over $1 million.
Yeah.
If you were making under $1 million in Massachusetts, you're doing good.
Solid spot. Okay. But where
they also have sales tax. How come?
So you know what I think?
Why can't the Blazers as an organization, right? Because we talk about income taxes and all that stuff. But you know what we don't have here? We don't have sales tax.
You're right.
So you know how much money you would save when you buy your fat Bentley? When you buy your Ferrari? When you buy your car that can't drive up an icy driveway, DeAndre Ayton? You know how much money you would save because we don't have that. We don't have the sales tax.
Justin,
when you buy your bling.
Justin handing out ideas for free one center court. I'd maybe be taking notes.
Just saying.
Maybe he should be on the
in the end, like, income taxes, okay, but I don't want to cast a wide net, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush. But last time I checked, NBA players buy a lot of stuff. They buy a lot of stuff.
So what you're saying
is, so if you buy a lot of stuff, what a better place to be than here in the great state of Oregon, because we don't tax you on your stuff.
So you're saying it might be good to hand
out.
You
paying 7% tax on a $200,000 car?
True. So you're saying we might be better off to maybe hand out like free agent flyers and say, there's no sales tax here.
Mm-hmm. You buy all the stuff you want.
Certain things are legal here. Like,
I think that's pretty well known.
Maybe push it more. Maybe push it more. I don't know, man.
I think the Nuggets got speed on that
that's true.
one.
The Nuggets got that. But, you mentioned, Orlando and Dallas and some other places where it's a little different,
I
right?
know.
I don't know. Just thinking about things NBA
Isn't that just crazy when you think about like this big giant country that we live in and like things that are not normal, but are common to all of us, like I drive by 20 dispensaries on my way to and from.
Half a dozen, sure.
And then to think like you go to other places, and you're like, no, don't pack it in your bag.
Yeah. It's
good
nuts.
luck.
It's nuts, but nevertheless.
Dude, when I went to Mexico, I saw the federales, and it wasn't me or anybody in our traveling party, but somebody had a vape pen, and
really?
Did they pounce.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I am glad that ain't me.
I remember that was an eye-opener when I went to Mexico, too. It's like, I can't remember if it was at the airport or outside, but, like, federales have, like, weapons with them.
Oh, yeah.
Big weapons. You're like, oh, yeah, this is Mexico, all right. But, I was just curious, Justin, if which one ultimately was more...
I saw that yesterday, and I was like, I'm going to have to deal with this tomorrow.
Last point on this, I'll say this, too. I think the ultimate big winner, Justin, and this will be something where 15, 20 years from now, you'll text me or I'll text you. You'll go, yeah, Brenden, maybe you were right or you're way wrong. I think the ultimate winner in this is ultimately going to be when Las Vegas gets a team. Because when Las Vegas has an NBA team and you can offer what I believe is the greatest nightlife scene for an athlete. That's maybe not Los Angeles or New York, but close.
Miami.
Fair. One of those.
Houston.
And the
Atlanta.
And the only, other than Miami, another state, Justin, with no state income tax because you're putting that pressure on all the people coming in to stay and gamble. So I think the team that Vegas yields and probably will be owned by LeBron James will have a leg up in that regard.
You think so? You think Vegas will be a destination? I like
I don't
Vegas, but I don't know if I want to live in Vegas.
Yeah, I think I could see it, but like I said, let's check back in.
But I'm also
Brenden,
not a 24-year-old multimillionaire. So I guess
we could literally.
That being said,
did Scoot Henderson like his 2 years in Henderson? Right there you go.
I don't know. We got one more?
Yeah, let's get to one fun one to close it out, Justin. One starter will be traded this week for the Portland Trail Blazers. And
all right, wait. We've seen a lot of starting lineups. Who do we consider starters?
For the sake of the argument, we're just going to say it's Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant.
Simons, Grant, Thibault?
Yeah, we'll throw him in there too.
Thibault is a starter.
Not Robert Williams.
Robert Williams did not start.
But we'll throw him in.
Well, and DeAndre Ayton, right?
Yeah, so tell me one of them will be gone this week, Justin.
I don't have any evidence. Can I just preface? I have zero, zilch, none, nada, no evidence. But, why do I have this weird feeling that DeAndre Ayton's going to get shopped? I don't know why. It's just.
I'd like to see it happen.
It's just
roll with Klay right away.
I just look at what they're trying to build here, and I just don't know if he fits. I've been the most pro DeAndre Ayton of anybody. All season last year, I was like, he is stat padding, and I love it. He should be. He should be stat padding. But, I don't know why. I just have this weird feeling. But then again, we always do this with the Blazers, right? Who's going to get shopped? And then nobody gets shopped because the value just isn't quite there. I would say, though, one starter, and I think it's Jeremy Grant. I think Jeremy Grant. But as Bill Orm talked about yesterday, anybody out there that is in the market for Jeremy Grant looking to take on that contract? Because it's a big one. It's a doozy. And you go to that second apron, and then you can't combine the players, and you don't get mid-level veteran exceptions or taxpayer.
That contract's got $120 left on it, Justin.
That's a lot of money.
Over 4 years. That being said, however, if the Blazers can drum up just a decent asset in return, Justin, you have to do it because Jeremy Grant, the guy who's next in line of not fitting this timeline, even DeAndre Ayton would fit the timeline more considering those guys are 5 years apart in age. And you really didn't give up a lot to get Jeremy Grant, right? So it almost would be like a win-win for Portland as far as, it stinks. You got Jeremy Grant to win a Mountain Dame.
What?
That didn't happen.
Well,
right?
Here's what I'm wondering, and no one will ever know. Did Jeremy Grant get the deal because Joe Cronin believed that he isn't going to be an integral part of this organization for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years? Or did the Blazers give him that deal to try to entice Damian Lillard to stay? We don't know.
I lean the second one.
I lean it, but that's just because I think we like the drama.
We do.
Because I just don't know. Can you be that cavalier with $100 and some million?
If it's the Vulcan's money, maybe.
I guess. All right. Coming up next, it is Tuesday. Even though it's a beautiful Tuesday and it's a short week, I still got something to be grumpy about. We will all get off my lawn next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, it is going to be very difficult to be grumpy today. It really is. It's a beautiful day. It's going to get hot this weekend. Are you prepared for you going to the rodeo this weekend?
Rodeo on the 4th, and then probably the river the next 2 days.
Okay, because it's going to be blazing hot.
Oh, I'm well aware.
Watch out for the bulls, by the way, at the rodeo. I heard,
It can be a problem.
head on a swivel.
Remember, I won't be in the stands, so we're good.
Neither was that bull and sisters. It wasn't in the stands. It jumped right past the stands and went to the concession area.
Yeah, no,
That
I'm
bull and
still in like the
sisters-
beer garden, which is nice, far away, so we're solid.
But
But it is a fair concern.
It really is. Your entire life, the bull never jumped over the thing, and then it just did. And they're like,
It's kind of
I
ironic.
had to worry about sitting there eating my soft pretzel and is that a bull? Whoa! Gone.
So, like, if the stadium's here, like, you take, like, probably 200 paces, and then there's a place, ironic, Justin, it's called the Bullpen.
Yeah, watch out.
That
That bull might head right towards it.
Good spot to kill about 3-4 hours and some cheap drinks.
So I'm just saying, keep your head on a swivel.
It'll be hot.
But it's going to be warm. But it's beautiful. It's a holiday weekend. Not much to be grumpy about here on a Tuesday, even though it is statistically the grumpiest day of the week. But still, we can't just let a Tuesday go by without getting something off our chest. So it is that time of the week, and it's that time of the year for you all to get off my lawn. Here we go. All right, here's the deal. I love 4th of July. It's one of my favorite holidays. I love the history behind 4th of July. Did you know that, the reason why 4th of July is the way it is, because that's when not when the Declaration of Independence was signed, but it's just when they wrote it down. And it was just July 4th was was just kind of the day they were signing it weeks apart, because these guys were coming from South Carolina and Maine and everywhere else, and they're all on carriages. But 4th of July is one of my favorite holidays. And you know what? I love a good fireworks show. I do. I love a good fireworks show in the hands of professionals. You know what? I don't even mind a good fireworks show because I grew up on a cul-de-sac. Shout out to Joel Allen Court. I grew up in a cul-de-sac where, we would go to the local, shack in the empty parking lot next to the Abbeys, and you would get the Freedom Pack or the Independence Pack, or you know what I mean? And you'd have some fountains, and you'd have some Piccolo Petes, and you'd have some snakes in your sparklers. You mean to tell me? But then there are those people. Then there are those people that cross certain borders to get certain fireworks. And on 4th of July, and by the way, it's illegal to be lighting off your own fireworks inside Portland city limits. It's really dry out there. It's not as dry as it used to be, but you know what? One stupid firework can set a lot of things on fire. So just understand that. Isn't that what set the forest on fire 4 years ago? 5 years, something like that? The forest the size of Connecticut
Now, granted,
just got lit on fire because of a smoke ball.
Yeah, those parents and their $30 million judgment, I'm sure they're making good effort on that.
Yeah, did.
But they were smoke bombs. So that's, it is
But
silly.
smoke bombs are still fire.
You're right.
So anyways, point being is.
You just go to Washington and buy them. And then
That's what I'm saying.
And then do it up there, right? I don't condone that.
That being said, if you do want to light off fireworks, I applaud you. And you know what? I celebrate freedom as much as anybody. But to the rest of you who are going to be lighting off fireworks on the 3rd and the 5th and beyond of July, you can all get right off my lawn. You have one day. You have one day. Now, I am incredibly lucky for a multitude of reasons, one of which is my dog does not care about fireworks. Old Crash lived on the streets. Fireworks doesn't scare him. But you're going to scare the daylights out of some dogs. Do it one day of the year. I get so, who are these people? Who are they? And where did they come from? Who decided, you know what? It's the 6th of July. I didn't get enough of my cherry bombs, my bottle rockets, my lady fingers. Those are other ones. Light them all off on the 4th of July. And if you don't get them done by the end of the 4th of July, take them, put them in your closet, save them for New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
All right, New Year's Eve, right around the corner. But to these people, and there will be some, Brenden, mark my word, tonight, because they get a little antsy, and tomorrow, because you just can't wait until the actual day, you can all get right off my lawn. I don't want to be anti-firework. I don't. I do want to be pro not setting the forest on fire. I think I'm pretty well established there. I do. Wildfires are gnarly business. Don't be lighting anything on fire that could light a forest on fire. But I'm for fireworks on the 4th of July. Not the 5th. Certainly not the 6th. And certainly not the 3rd. So to all of them who are going to be lighting off fireworks tonight, because I know it's going to happen. It happens every year. Or lighting off fireworks. Like, you are just ruining everyone else's night. Just so you know that. You are ruining everyone else's night. So to all of them, I say get off my lawn. It is my biggest pet peeve of 4th of July. Go, buy some fireworks. Enjoy Thursday night. Light off some snakes and some sparklers and some ground bloom flowers. And, yeah, even the noisy ones like the Piccolo Pete. Or the ones that, like, pop up, the fountains and all. Have at it. What is it? Is it 4 feet? Is that the rule? Is that the Oregon rule?
6.
6 feet? Can't be more than, like.
I grew up, Justin, always.
Can't shoot it more than 6 feet off. Which again, you want to light off noisy fireworks? Let's do it on the 4th. Anyways.
So, as I told you earlier in the week, my dog does not do 4th of July well, and we had some people who started lighting off fireworks last night.
Last night?
I was not having it, but then
you bleepity bleeps. You know who you are.
I mean, you know my neighborhood, though, Justin.
I don't. I've never been to your neighborhood.
Well, just from what you've heard from me. They're not the quietest bunch, so it didn't surprise me that we did fireworks on, Monday night of a work week. That being said, I grew up just always knowing, like, you really don't light off fireworks in Oregon. That's just kind of how I grew up. You can go to, like, the beach and be a little bit safer, or you go to Washington because that's where you can buy the real ones. And to Justin's point, we had a really bad lesson here in Oregon. So I'm with Justin. Don't need to have it happen here. Leave it to the experts.
Leave it to the experts. And also, if you do want
to
light off some fireworks, let's do it on the 4th. Is it so hard?
That too.
Just do it on the 4th. It drives me up a wall.
So why do you think, for how similar we are in every respect, Justin, how come for the entirety of my life, why are Oregon and Washington on the same page? Fireworks?
It's interesting.
Like, all these years, the fact that you can still go buy, like, bottle rockets in Washington.
I think it is, I could be way wrong on this, but I think it's, like the casinos, I think it's a tribal thing.
Oh,
okay. I think that's.
Okay, that would make some sense. But yeah, I've always was curious.
Want to use the proper indigenous? I think it's that.
That makes sense, but I was always curious because I'm like, how come you can just go to Vancouver and buy fireworks you can't buy in Oregon?
I think there is, because you can have casinos that are on exactly on Native American property. So I think it's something to do with that. Either way, have at it. Have a great time on Thursday.
I like the professionals.
Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturday. No. All right. Hour 3. Yes, it's next. 620 Rip City Radio. It is 8 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Justin Myers with you. NBA champion Jason Tatum will sign the richest extension in NBA history. 5 years, $314 million. Speaking of a big payday, Donovan Mitchell is going to continue with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He signed a 3-year extension worth $150 million. But Klay Thompson is on the move. He is headed to Dallas. He will be a member of the Mavericks after the Mavs sent a pair of second-round picks to the Golden State Warriors. It is a sign-and-trade deal, 3 years, $50 million for Klay Thompson to the Mavericks. In Celtics news, the Boston Celtics majority owner announced that they are planning on making making the franchise for sale. Who knows what the dollar value is? Somewhere upwards of $5 billion. Friend of the program, our basketball analyst, Devon Pouncey, is on the show right now, live in studio for the entire third hour as we start on Rip City Radio, 620. And welcome back to Rip City Mornings. Very excited to welcome back to the show in his normal Tuesday time spot in studio, live in person, Devon Pouncey. What's up, bud?
What's going on with you, man? A whole lot is up as far as this NBA is concerned.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking about this yesterday afternoon. You know, I've referenced the 6 months that you and I did our show on another radio station a while ago. But that was we started summer of 2017.
Yes.
And went into the fall of 2017. Didn't make it to 2018, interestingly enough. But we started in 2017.
But we're here now still, all these years later.
I remember that year, that summer especially. And a lot of it was because, you know, the Blazers, and it was that window of, can they get anybody to play with Dame? That lasted for a long, long while until ultimately he was traded away last year. But I remember it kind of felt like that summer, the summer of 2017, was kind of the beginning of what we have now, which is crazy player movement.
Yes.
Crazy player movement all like even back then. I know, look, LeBron went to the Heat and he went back to Cleveland, and player empowerment, player movement and Durant was still on the Warriors, so it wasn't out of the completely foreign, but it felt like right about then, about 7 years ago, that's when you really started to see what we are seeing now, which is, hey, Paul George is a 76er.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but it's not earth-shattering.
Yeah.
It's just what this league does. Klay Thompson is no longer a Golden State Warrior, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But that summer, because I remember you and I talked about, oddly enough, Carmelo Anthony to the Blazers, which did happen.
It did happen eventually.
Took 3 years, but it ultimately did happen. But there was a ton of talk back then because players were kind of moving, and it felt like that was kind of the start of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think players started getting more money. You know, we saw some changes in regards to the cap. And so I think at that time, it almost was to kind of compete against the fact that you had these big threes that were like intentionally being formed. You had these super teams, if you will, when you talk about the Warriors and the 4 All-Stars that they had and their starting lineup being formed. And then you had sort of, you know, some changes with the cap where players were able to go get more money all over the place. And I think that had a huge impact on some of the decisions that guys were making and things just becoming a lot more fluid in the offseason. The loyalty to teams disintegrated, essentially, and it became about, hey, I can't miss out on this paycheck. And the Blazers paid some folks quite well at the time when all of that was going on as well. Like, there were guys that were getting major bags that, you know, for some were questionable, but at the same time, it was more so what had become the norm. And I just think that as fans and consumers, we were not used to seeing, you know, guys who were coming off the bench and being rotation guys making $70-80 million a year. And so I think just, you know, there was a lot of changes to sort of combat this sort of super team era that had come to fruition, starting with LeBron going to the Heat, and then you had KD going to the Warriors. And then it was a little bit of money for everybody to take advantage of. And I think that's where the loyalty to stand with the same organization essentially went out the window.
I mentioned this last hour because the last 2 days, speaking of guys making a lot of money coming off the bench, Brenden has brought up the contract extension of Alan Crabb. And
That's
Alan
my
Crabb,
guy, man. That's my guy.
And
He got paid.
and so I got to enjoy the trickle-down effects of that paycheck one fateful night where you and I started off by watching basketball, and we ended up at a place I've never been nor been since.
Yeah.
At a club in a VIP room.
Yes.
Drinking Hennessy with Alan Crabb.
We had a time.
The story to tell.
We definitely had a time. Yeah, good guy, man. That's my boy. And again, he was one of the players that was a recipient of the cap has changed, and there's a lot of money on the table for me to get. No fault of his.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? But there was a lot of players that was like that, and it had just become the norm. But yes, Alan Crabb was one of those people that got a nice hefty bag during that time period. And I definitely had a lot of good times with him during that time of life.
I had one I'll never forget.
You had one you'll never forget, for sure.
Don't remember much of it either, but I'll never forget it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, we had a time, man. That's my boy.
Kelly was out of town, and then she came back, and she's like, so what did you do? What did you and Devon do? I'm like, you will not believe what Devon and I did. All right, I want to get to this because coming up in about 15 minutes, I do want to get into kind of the specifics of Paul George, of Klay Thompson, of Jason Tatum staying in Boston, and, of course, Donovan Mitchell, that a lot of people thought was going to be out of Cleveland. He's definitely going to stay in Cleveland because he's getting paid $150 million. But you mentioned the league of, like, loyalty is done now.
Yes,
like loyal to yourself and loyal to your family and loyal to your bank account. And I certainly can respect all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. I wonder from a league standpoint, have we gotten to the point where it may not be the best for the league?
I don't think so.
You think
I think it's great for the league. I think it's great for the league from the standpoint, for one, it has made the league. It gives you year-round interest when it comes to the NBA. Obviously, you got your season, that goes on from October to June. And then you have an off season where what else would we be talking about right now if we didn't have all of this movement going on and kind of the excitement around the NBA and the buildup around the NBA leading into the next season, I think makes a world of difference in regards to its popularity. Obviously, staying in the news cycle. And just kind of the drama surrounding it. We got Summer League coming up here, in a little over a week. And so I'm excited to even go there and kind of hear the murmurings that are happening across the NBA because of all the shaking up that's happening. And, of course, seeing the new young draft picks be able to get their first chance to play against some NBA-level competition. But I think in terms of making this a year-round sport and garnering year-round interest around the NBA, which wasn't always a thing in years past, I think it's great for the league to stay in the cycle and atop the news cycle when in the world of sports the way that they've been able to. Because you and I both know, and you know very well as a longtime radio host, in the summer, you usually don't have much to talk about. You got to talk about all the goofy stuff happening because there's no sport.
Though.
It's your wheelhouse for sure. It's your wheelhouse, but it ain't everybody's.
My bread and butter is goofy.
It is, but still, now look at us. We got plenty of sports to talk about here during the summer, and I think the NBA and all the movement that's happening is a big part of that.
I asked Brenden this. I'm going to ask you this. Is there anyone out there that if they were to play for another team, it would shock you? Because I feel like we've gotten to the point in this league where is there any shocking player movement anymore? Like LeBron's been on 4 different teams.
Yeah.
Kevin Durant's been on a handful of different teams. Paul George is now on to his 4th team.
Yeah.
Players move around all the time. Chris Paul's on the San Antonio Spurs.
Steph Curry would be the only one.
That's the only name I could really think of because even Giannis.
Yeah.
I could see Giannis moving on from the Bucks.
For sure.
Brenden mentioned, I thought it was interesting, Anthony Edwards. Guy like Anthony Edwards.
Nah. I think Anthony.
I don't think immediately, but I could definitely see a scenario where it's like, yeah, you're not doing enough. I want out of Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely. I could see a world where he ends up in LA or New York or one of the major markets. I think, we talk about kind of the smaller markets versus the bigger markets. I think Anthony Edwards' star power is still big enough, especially with him being so young, to where he could end up in one of those massive markets. Now, do I think that he'll probably take another massive deal from Minnesota beforehand, and then if things aren't working out in terms of them winning, maybe try to force himself out when that money's already guaranteed? Sure, but I don't think Minnesota is an attractive enough market beyond what they've been able to cultivate, which is pretty decent on the basketball front, for Anthony Edwards to be like committed to staying in Minnesota for the entirety of his career.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Steph is the only one.
Steph's the only one.
Whereas, like, if out of nowhere, it's like we saw, like, Woj or Shams is like, hey, breaking news, Steph Curry has demanded. This is a hypothetical for those just getting in
For
the
sure.
car. But like, if you were to ever see like Steph Curry to demand a trade, that would be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Now, in a handful of years, we'll see what happens with the Warriors. We've seen it before where guys like, Charles Barkley played for like the Rockets at the end of his career.
Right.
And Karl Malone went to the Lakers in that weird year with them. So we've seen it before, but as it sits right now, he's the only guy in the league, including LeBron James, including Joel Embiid, Jokic. Would Jokic surprise you?
Ooh.
That might be another one.
That might be another one. Jokic would surprise me, because if I'm Denver, I'm never getting rid of that guy, first and foremost. And I don't think Jokic cares enough to be in a market any bigger than Denver, at least stateside. He wants to get back home as quick as he can. So Jokic, I think, definitely would be second to Steph Curry. But as far as like a huge surprise, it would definitely be Steph.
All right, coming up, we want to talk about some of the specific moves. In Philly, you now have Embiid, Paul George, Maxey, and company. Is that enough to take on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics and their defending champions? You now have Klay matched up with Kyrie and Luka, 3 single-name guys, all in Dallas. How much did Dallas improve? What happens with the Warriors? What happens with the Clippers? What happens with Cleveland now that they're going to keep Donovan Mitchell around? So all the ins and the outs, and we may dive into what maybe the plans of the Blazers might be in the next couple of days and weeks. That's all coming up next here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, welcome back to Rip City Mornings. Devon Pouncey joining us live in studio. Obviously, a lot of movement in the NBA, and it feels a little bit like college football, right? I know that Oregon's playing in the Big Ten next year, but it doesn't feel quite real yet. And all the conference realignment stuff that went on last year, but like they still had to play out the rest of the season. And I know that Klay Thompson's a Dallas Maverick, but it doesn't feel real yet. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like you see the Photoshops and all the stuff where you can put the picture, the jersey on. And
Right.
Like Paul George is a 76er, but like still doesn't feel real yet. And so it's just kind of weird, especially with those two guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, we dealt with it. You asked the question in the last segment of players that you think probably you'd be surprised if they left their franchises, but we dealt with it with Dame this past season.
Yeah.
Like, it was still pretty awkward seeing him in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform, not gonna lie, and I think the same will be the case for, more in particular, Klay Thompson. Paul George, this isn't his first time leaving the team, so seeing him leave the Clippers doesn't shock me so much. But with Klay Thompson, like, to me, 5 years ago, he would have been considered a forever Warrior to me. And I think, once the injuries happened, you saw that there could be some writing on the wall. And then especially when Bob Myers left, it's like, okay, this might be one of the reasons Bob is getting out of there, because these are some of the tough decisions that ultimately have to be made in regards to the Warriors. Then they win the championship, things get tricky. But I think ultimately Klay was the one that threw me off the most, seeing him leave Golden State, because you just never expect the Splash Bros to no longer be bros.
I thought for certain, if you were to ask me after KD left and then they had the reiteration of the Golden State team and won the championship, said who's going to be the first kind of Draymond's going to be the first one gone.
Right, for
There's
sure.
no way,
Definitely.
He's punching out Jordan Poole. Because he's definitely going to be the first one. It's like, nope, Draymond's going to stay and get an extension, and that Klay Thompson is going to be the one that ultimately leaves. So let's talk about Dallas first. So Dallas was just in the finals, but clearly we're not up to the task because the Celtics are an absolute wagon. But they were in the finals this year. 2 years earlier, they were in the Western Conference Finals. So Dallas with Luka clearly poised to be a factor for a while. And then you add Kyrie. They ultimately figured it out, got to the finals. Now you add Klay Thompson, and I understand that this is not, like you mentioned, Klay Thompson of 5 years ago.
Right.
But while the defense may not be the same, shooting stroke is still the same.
It's there.
And so I wonder, you're replacing Derek Jones Jr., a guy that could play a lot of defense, but
liability offensively.
Liability in a lot of places.
Yeah.
We saw that in his run here in Portland.
For sure.
How big of an upgrade is this?
I mean, it's a huge upgrade, again,
even
offensively.
with this part of Klay Thompson's career.
Now, the only thing that concerns me a little bit, and I think we saw a lot of this postseason, and this was, as you mentioned, Boston being an absolute wagon. They played team ball. The ISO ball, it helps in regards to be able to create spacing for ISO ball. But I think that Jason Kidd, and I think he's capable of this because of the type of player he was, the type of coach he's been. I think he's done a really good job, with this Mavericks team. But I think after what happened with the Boston Celtics, losing the series to the Boston Celtics, and now bringing in a guy like Klay Thompson, who's played in an offense that has a lot of motion, a lot of ball movement, player movement, not so much playing off of whoever the guy is with the basketball in isolation mode, which is primarily Luka Doncic. In some cases, it'll be Kyrie. I'm interested to see if Dallas will kind of change their offense a little bit, because you now have a sharpshooter like Klay who can spread the floor more, but also you realize that one of your weaknesses in the NBA Finals was maybe there wasn't enough ball movement and player movement to kind of, loosen up the defense of Boston, who's really good defensively. And ultimately, ISO ball just wasn't going to sustain you to ultimately winning the championship. And so I'm interested to see how the Mavericks adjust to having a guy like Klay Thompson who's used to playing with a lot of motion type offensive style. And if, Luka in particular, I think Kyrie is good on the ball or off the ball. He knows how to do both. Luka in particular is the one who's going to have to adjust quite a bit of maybe sometimes playing off the ball, but doing so to allow for more offensive flow and not for guys to just play off of him and whatever it is that he decides to do with the basketball.
All right, so now I'm curious about the Golden State Warriors.
Yes.
Because conventional wisdom would say, all right, this is the beginning of the end of the great Warriors dynasty. And it will go down as one of the great dynasties in NBA history. I mean, I think we ran through the names a couple of weeks ago. There's not that many in the modern era of the NBA, which I count as like when cable TV came around, the Magic Bird era.
Right.
Obviously, you have the Celtics of the 60s. And but for the modern era, the Magic Bird era, the dynasties, it's Celtics, it's Lakers, it's Bulls, it's Lakers again. It's Spurs, and then it's Warriors. That's it.
Agreed.
That's it. That's six. That's of those actual like dynasties. The Heat were close, but once LeBron left, I think they were.
Two's not enough to call yourself
two's not
a
enough.
dynasty.
4 trips to the finals.
Yeah, two's
you
not
were close,
enough.
but
you got to win 3 at least. You got to win 3 to be a dynasty, in my opinion.
And we saw of 2 of those teams I mentioned, we saw the end of the Lakers dynasty, which was. Kobe was never the same after the Achilles.
Yeah.
And that last farewell tour scored a lot of points. That last game was fun, but that wasn't a very good Lakers team.
Yeah.
On the flip side, towards the end of the Spurs dynasty, we did see Tim Duncan take on kind of an administrative role.
Yeah.
And Kawhi Leonard became the best player on that team, ultimately winning an NBA Finals MVP and winning another trophy. I wonder which way Steph goes. I wonder, like, are the Warriors going to be able to surround him and him take almost more of an ambassador role, still get his buckets, still get his minutes, but not having to be the focal point of the Warriors? Or do we see them kind of dwindle into the end?
I think Steph wants to win still because he's still got enough juice in his legs to do so if he, gets pieces around him. But Steph's still an all-NBA player, you know what I mean? And he's a guy who I think is an ultra competitor. And I don't think that Klay Thompson leaving changes what it is that Steph does or has to do, because Steph, again, is one of those players that plays within the flow of an offense, so good off the ball. And you still have Draymond, who's kind of your point forward, if you will, who has ultimately become a distributor, the ultimate distributor for the Warriors, because he had 2 guys like Steph and like Klay, and of course when Poole was there, amongst others, KD, that were able to just kind of move without the ball, get open, and all he had to do was find them, and it was money. And so I don't think Steph's role changes so much, and I do think that he's going to put some pressure because Klay left and because it wasn't necessarily the cleanest departure for Klay Thompson. I do think Steph Curry still wants to upgrade and say, hey, we need to bring more talent here. I'm still good enough to be able to lead a team to a deep playoff run. And now my right-hand man is gone. And Steph and everybody else, Kerr, Draymond, have expressed that they wanted Klay Thompson back. So I think you put a little pressure on Dunleavy to try and bring more talent in and try to help Steph build out a team. And, of course, I think they're relying upon Kuminga really having a breakout season as well in terms of being able to be more of a near all-star caliber player. We know his trajectory is high, but he's been really young, and I think now is the time that you want to see him sort of break out and have a huge season. So I don't think Steph is content at all in regards to riding off into the sunset and not trying to compete for another championship.
It is going to be interesting to see, are there players out there? Because their player movement's not going to stop. And I'm not just talking about the next couple of weeks. I'm talking about you get into the season. I saw the Bulls are looking to move on from DeRozan and Levine. Obviously, the Blazers still have some moves that they need to make. And then it's ever fluid in the NBA as well.
Yes, it is.
Because all it takes is one player to get a little bit disgruntled and decide, I don't want to be here. And all of a sudden, you'll see a domino effect. And we saw that with a handful of teams, one of which is the 76ers.
Yes.
Let me throw out my Sixers theory.
Okay.
Let me prep. I like Joel Embiid. I like the fact that he's honest. I like that he kind of trolls on Twitter and isn't exactly, the cut and dry corporate,
superstar
that we've seen. That being said, So far, the Sixers have decided that it was Ben Simmons' fault. They ran him out of town.
Yeah.
Then they decided it was Doc Rivers' fault.
Mm-hmm.
Ran him out of town.
Jimmy Butler was there.
Then they decided it was Jimmy Butler's fault. He got ran out of town. Then it was James Harden's fault.
Yeah.
He got ran, and I kind of chose to go as well.
Yeah.
In James Harden fashion. This last year, like, they really turned on Tobias Harris. Like, the fan base, that real fast. If it ain't it with Paul George, is it maybe time to take a look at Joel Embiid? Now, I know injuries, circumstances are circumstantial, but is it maybe, like, this reminds me of everybody's got that one friend who keeps dating crazy girls. Like, maybe they're not the crazy one. Maybe it's you.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe you are the one. Maybe he's just a tough guy to play with. I don't know. It feels like Philadelphia's had because their fans are not shy about turning on people that they don't feel are worthy.
That's a fact.
Of the Philadelphia level of fandom.
Yes.
But it's like you said, it's been Ben Simmons, it's been Doc Rivers, it was Jimmy Butler, it was James Harden, it was Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
It was all these. Now here comes Paul George. If it feels imminent.
They've all been fall guys for sure. And I think a lot of that more so has had to do with the Embiid injuries.
Yeah.
Than maybe him being the crazy one rather than them being the crazy ones. But I do think that there does come a point in time where if this maybe doesn't work out, which, I mean, granted, with those guys getting, 4-year deals in Maxey and obviously Paul George, you've got a little time to try to see if this experiment is actually going to work out. But I do think this may be like the last iteration of trying to build around Embiid because he is still the number one option on this team before deciding maybe we just blow it all up and try to go into rebuild mode if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, because they've had eras. And, of course, they've had drama, if you will, in each of those eras. But you consider Embiid's size, you consider his injury history, you consider the fact that he's not getting any younger. I think because you were able to get a Maxey to turn into what he's ultimately turned into, and because you had the cap space to be able to go get a Paul George, you absolutely take advantage of being able to do so. But if it doesn't work out in these next 3 to 4 years, of course, we got player options and all the things that to be considered, then, yes, this might be sort of the last era of trying to build around Embiid to ultimately win a championship.
The Celtics have the trophy. The Celtics have the banner. They have the two best players on their team, and they just locked up Jason Tatum. It's no doubt it's the best team in the East. It's the best team in the NBA.
Yes.
Winners get sprinkles. They got a trophy. Milwaukee, Philly,
New York now.
New York, Cleveland, Indy.
Yeah.
Who's the second best team in the East? Right now, if we say no, like no more moves are made.
Yeah.
And who between Giannis and Dame, Maxey, Embiid and Paul George, and the Villanova boys.
Yeah,
New York.
I'm going with New York.
Going New York.
I'm going New York, and the reason why is obviously the Mikal Bridges pickup and the Villanova boys, but they went on that playoff run this year without Julius Randle.
Yeah.
And so when you consider the fact that Julius Randle will also be back in a New York uniform, and if he isn't back, you get some value for him. You know what I mean? If you're the New York Knicks. But Julius Randle, a 2-time All-Star, a 20-10 guy that wasn't available throughout that run, and you bring on a Mikal Bridges, like I would have to say on paper for sure, considering Bridges.
And they re-signed OG Anunoby,
and they re-signed OG Anunoby as well. Like, I'm
Brenden,
going to have to
like,
go with New York.
22-3 with Anunoby in the lineup?
Oh, yeah. It was
silly like that?
Yeah, something like that. They lost 3 games.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I am actually going to go out and say I think New York is the second best team in the Eastern Conference, being able to retain Anunoby, being able to acquire Bridges, and knowing that Julius Randle will be back next season. So you had an all-star player that you were missing throughout what was a very impressive season for the Knicks this year.
It was funny. I went back and looked just because the whole Villanova thing is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And there's a handful of other teams, but That 2017 Villanova Wildcats team, that would have been 2016. The 2016 Villanova Wildcats, when they hit the shot over North Carolina with the trailer, the three-pointer to win.
Yeah.
That might be the most basketball talented team ever put forth in the NCAA.
Well, it's crazy because at the time, a lot of those guys weren't getting like major props of being like high-level NBA prospects, and they've all turned out to be, but like they weren't getting the acclaim of being future NBA All-Stars or being able to run together in the NBA and go on deep playoff runs. They weren't getting that acclaim.
Kentucky teams were like the entire starting lineup got drafted in the top 12.
Right.
But one or two of them turned out to be
for sure.
All like Brunson, Hart, DiVincenzo, and now Bridges. Like they're all, like even like Arcidiacono played a handful of
Blazer
teams
legend.
Blazer legend, Ryan
Arcidiacono.
Learned how to say his name for all of 2 weeks.
We did.
They shut him down. But, he played in the NBA. But, yeah, you think about, like, there's a couple of teams I could think of, that 07 Florida Gator team. Which is funny because Al Horford just is still playing.
He's still playing, yeah,
but
for sure.
Al Horford, Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, and I think Chandler Parsons?
Parsons, it was like a year later.
It was a year later.
Yeah,
right.
it was like a year later.
But even, like, so there was that team.
Yeah.
And I go back to Larry Johnson, Greg Anthony, Stacey Augmon.
UNLV, baby.
UNLV.
Yes, sir.
There's a squad.
Absolute,
they were fire.
Absolute squad. But, like, you have 4 rotation players from Villanova and a handful of guys that, played in the G League, had some two-way deals. But you have 4 guys that are all on the Knicks right now.
For sure.
All rotation players, all important players. And the Knicks are second best team in the East.
Second best team in the East. I'm
That's
giving it to them.
loaded college basketball team. How'd they ever lose?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so no, I agree. Like I said, I think, the Knicks have had the most impressive offseason so far after coming off one of the most successful seasons that they've had in a really long time, and considering, again, that they didn't have Julius Randle for much of that run. So I think you've got to put them at number 2 in the Eastern Conference, which I did not expect to be saying by this point in time, but here we are.
All right, speaking of here we are, a handful of minutes before we get to the mailbag. The Blazers drafted Donovan Clingan. I like the pick. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, again, I go back to when you and I were on the air on our old show. But there were a lot of fans very critical of the Zach Collins draft.
Yes.
A lot of Blazer fans very critical of the Zach Collins pick. I went back and looked. Now, they're not exactly apples to apples.
Yeah.
But Clingan and Zach Collins, for what they were coming out of college, not that different. Not entire, like, you look, I know Clingan is a rim protector. Go to blocks per game. Fairly close. Points per game.
Different level of competition they played against as well.
Well,
If
they
when
were
you talk
both
when
in
you
the
look at
championship game.
No, I'm talking about over the course of the season. When you
Yes,
start
sir.
talking about numbers and averages, Collins played in the WCC. It's a difference.
Hey, don't hate on the WCC now,
It's a
Devon.
difference. let's just be real about
Some
it.
teams are new to the WCC. We like it, okay?
Adam Morrison, those guys,
Big
Jimmy
East ain't what
Fredette,
it
they
used
were
to be
great
either.
in the WCC. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. That Clingan, over the course of his career, has played against much better competition at the collegiate level than Zach Collins did.
They're both playing in the Final Four.
I
They
mean,
both played in the championship game.
Yeah, but when you come to some stats were padded.
So did
Let's just say
75
that.
other guys.
All right.
And one of them won back-to-back titles. Let's just say that too.
That being said, in the next 9, when you look at kind of what the Blazers are looking to build, I know we talk about with Anthony Simons. I'm going to give that a break for a week. And it sounds like I'm trying to run Jeremy Grant out of town either. I'm not, but I look at where Portland is and the realistic timeline of the next 2 to 3 years. And anybody over the age of 25, in my opinion, really shouldn't be part of that timeline. If you start looking at what this and there may be some need, but Jeremy Grant comes with a steep price tag, and we've seen like with the salary cap and changes. But if I were to guess the one Blazer current on this roster who is probably on the move, I think it's Jeremy Grant.
Mhm.
And you hear like Lakers, and there may be some other teams. But I don't think the Blazers are done. I think there's more movement on the way.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that, and I think a lot of teams, again, when you start to see a lot of the movement happening, I look at, we talk about New York and their upgrades. Philly now has an upgrade. If I'm in the Eastern Conference, Cleveland just extended Donovan Mitchell, but they know that, hey, the East is getting back. It's leveling up again from a competition standpoint. This past season, the East was considered to have a down year, and it was just all Boston all the way. But, like, some big offseason moves have happened over there in the Eastern Conference. And, you consider the fact that, Dame and Giannis will be back next season as well. They kind of got through, a lot of the ups and downs of playing their first year together, which is common. They dealt with all kind of drama over there in Milwaukee, but you know that they'll be back. If you're a team like Orlando and, we were able to level up in what was considered a down year, but here we go. This offseason, there's some splashy moves being made more so in the Eastern Conference than in the Western Conference. So I do believe that, if you're in the East, if you're one of those teams, Indiana even, which, they're young still, but you just got to look down the line of like, all right, we said it was a down year in the East, but some splashy moves are being made now. Who are guys that we can go out there and get and kind of pick off, knowing that most of those guys will potentially come from the Western Conference because we don't have to see them unless we make it to an NBA Finals. Who can we pick off from out West to bring over here to try to compete with an East that seems to be on the rise based on offseason moves?
All right, coming up next, we have a special Ebony and Ivory version of the RCM mailbag, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up the big show. We do that with the RCM mailbag, but we have a very special edition of the RCM mailbag each and every Tuesday when our good friend Devon Pouncey joins us because we are both curious. We are fascinated with each other's cultures, that the universe had put us both in this place and at this time, coming from such different backgrounds. So for that, we've created a segment we like to call Ebony and Ivory. Here we go. All right, Pounce, I've credited you with a lot of knowledge that I have.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. And I have learned your Thanksgiving different than my Thanksgiving.
Indeed.
Your Christmas a little bit different than my Christmas.
Facts.
Do you have different 4th of July?
Ooh. We barbecue?
I'm just in general. Like, I'm just curious, what would 4th of July look like?
Barbecue and fireworks.
Yeah.
Illegal fireworks.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Go to
Crossing
Washington,
a border
right?
You know, growing up, we popped M1000s and, I don't know.
But they were in the 80s.
I don't know, what kind of, I don't know if you just go to the fireworks stand or if you go, maybe to the trap and find a bomb in there that you can go let off car alarms and
here's
hurt
what I
people
will
and all those kinds of things.
There are certain things, right, that you and I are very different on, but then there are certain things where it's like, we both had the same thing. Illegal fireworks, whether it's your Vallejo, California, or Winston, Oregon. There's always a fascination because I grew up with rednecks who had they fished with those illegal fireworks. Did you ever have friends that would take? So they had the Piccolo Pete, which was the one that would whistle.
Yeah. Duct
tape it, pound it with a hammer, and turn it into a bomb. Because I had friends that did that.
I don't know about that. Like I said,
that sounds horribly dangerous.
Yeah,
it's incredibly dangerous.
But hey, maybe fun.
It's massively illegal, and I disavow. I did not participate, but I'm just saying. In the 90s, I may have had a friend or two who would go and you would buy. It was a Piccolo Pete. And you would duct tape it, and then you would pound it with a ball peen hammer, and it would explode.
Yeah, that's I don't know if we did that, but like I said, we did like M1000s were like very popular, around when we came. I remember one year even my mom, this is gonna sound crazy, but my uncle lit several of them and like ran, and one of them didn't do what it was supposed to do, and it like hit my mom like in her back. It was almost like she got shot on 4th. It was terrible. It was terrible. Like it was all bad. And like after that, I think we kind of slowed down on the illegal fireworks at the family festivities on the 4th of July. She dang near had to go to the hospital and all types of stuff. It was a little wild.
My freshman year of high school, we played in a regional baseball tournament.
Yeah.
And that regional baseball tournament was in Montana. And driving from Oregon to Montana, you drive through a lot of Native American reservations. Let's just say a lot of illegal fireworks. Well, legal to them.
Yeah.
But let's just say a lot of fireworks that you couldn't get at the Boy Scout shack.
Right.
Were purchased on that trip.
Yeah. It can get
you
wild.
go to like these truck stops because in Montana, like the indigenous reservation, they're huge. Like you're driving and you got to stop and get gas. Go to this truck stop. He's like, "You have fireworks?" Like, oh, do we have fireworks?
Yeah, for sure. See, for us, it was whoever was the hustler on the streets. They hustled fireworks too. So all you had to do was go find who the hustlers were. Man, they'll find a way to get paid, whether it was off fireworks or anything else. And so that was kind of our way of being able to go get the fireworks that we weren't supposed to have. But for you, just what was this, Sunday? So a couple days ago, and I hate it because I was disappointed by the production that was put on. But growing up, BET, baby, Black Entertainment Television, every year it was a family thing. We would watch the BET Awards. So I watched it a couple days ago, and I hadn't watched it in a few years. I've gone to LA during BET Awards weekend and then didn't actually watch the awards.
Yeah.
But for you and your household, what was like that award show that everybody had to gather around and watch together? For us, it was like the BET Awards. We did some Grammys too, but the BET Awards were like the thing. For y'all, was it the AMAs?
It was the
CMAs?
American Music Awards.
Okay, American
It
Music.
was always the American
we
Music
didn't
Awards.
sit around. We didn't gather around for that.
Because here's the difference, right? The Grammys were a little highbrow.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
And every once in a while, like the Grammys would have like a cool year.
Yeah,
But like I remember one time I was watching the Grammys and Boyz II Men did not win Best New Artist. And I'm like, what are we doing?
right.
Like,
yeah,
have you heard Motown Philly?
for sure.
So then you go to the American Music Awards, and then you learn later, like, those aren't voted on. That is, it's record sales, it's airplay, it's essentially it's the numbers game.
Yeah.
And that was the best.
Yeah.
Because that had all the people that I listened to on the radio every year
Yeah.
was right there. So American Music Awards was the one. But
I never watched the American Music Awards growing up, but BET Awards, you can count it. It's like the Super Bowl at our house. and I tried to watch it.
What was the best one? Biggest
I think it was,
BET Award memory.
I think Chris Brown had a big one. I think he did a tribute to Michael Jackson. That was like crazy. That's when I feel like, but it was also coming off of some of the stuff he was dealing with Rihanna.
Yeah.
Bad moment for Chris Breezy.
Bad moment for Chris Breezy, but I think that performance was probably arguably the best performance that I've seen during the BET Awards. It was spectacular.
Yeah, Chris Brown. I can't. Team Riri, Chris. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, I mean, things happen.
He's
man.
got a separate. You got to
talented guy.
separate art
Best
from
dancer
art,
maybe
For
ever.
sure. Best dancer maybe ever, for sure.
Up there with MJ.
He's up there.
We
Yes,
don't
he
even have
is.
enough time. Are you guys out of your mind? All right, we have got to wrap up the big show. Thanks to Devon Pouncey. Thanks to super producer Brenden. Have a terrific Tuesday, everybody. 620 Rip City Radio.